Black Women Reading in Law, Tribute to Jean Camper Cahn. I'm excited to see a few of my alumni here. Okay. I'm Professor Shakisha Morgan, Assistant Professor of Law and Director of Academic Success and Bar Preparation here at the University of the District of Columbia, David A. Clarke School of Law. It is one of the greatest privileges of my career to stand in this room with you tonight and welcome you to this phenomenal celebration of Black women and to honor the legacy of Jean Camper Cahn. Jean Camper Cahn grew up in Baltimore, raised by Florine Thompson, a hairdresser, and Dr. John Emery Toussaint Camper, a physician and founder of Baltimore's first NAACP chapter. In a household where Thurgood Marshall and Paul Robeson, her godfather, came over for dinner, justice was a conversation at the table. But what truly formed her throughout her life and her career was a justice she saw and could not look away from. As a child, she was the first Black student to integrate at the Willard School, where white classmates refused to live near her dormitory room. She also watched her family navigate the unthinkable as her brother contracted a treatable ear infection that eventually required removal of brain tissue after he was refused admission to Johns Hopkins University Hospital because he was Black. Jean took those painful lived experiences, the frustration and the anger they produced, and did something with it. She earned her undergrad with honors from Swarthmore and her law degree from Yale while raising children. And she aimed every credential at the people the law ignored. In 1965, Jean Camper Cahn and her husband Edgar co-authored a landmark article in the Yale Law Journal, The War on Poverty, A Civilian Perspective. It proposed a radical idea, a national system of legal services for people who could not otherwise afford a lawyer. Reading that article in preparation for tonight, I came to understand something Jean Camper Cahn knew deeply. Silence is the infrastructure that builds injustice. And she spent her life dismantling that. Because Jean understood that the elimination of poverty had to comprehend spiritual as well as physical subsistence, the restoration of dignity alongside the delivery of services, not charity, but agency, not programs delivered to poor people, but power restored to them. So she built the Urban Law Institute at George Washington University, filing hundreds of lawsuits on behalf of DC's poorest residents, compelling slumlords and television stations and the city government itself to answer for their actions. But then the government pulled out its funding and the university had to shut it down because it was working. A Black woman built power and an institution, pressured by the government, moved to dismantle it. Sound familiar? So in 1972, Jean then defiantly co-founded the Antioch School of Law, our predecessor, with her husband, Edgar, and with a mission, singular and unapologetic, to train lawyers who would use the law as a weapon against injustice. Jean became the first Black woman to co-found a law school. She became the first Black woman to serve as a dean of a law school. And tonight, we will commune with 3 Black women law deans who are the embodiment of Jean's legacy and vision. This is a legacy that lives in every student we refuse to give up on. This is a vision that is the intellectual foundation of everything we do here. When I sit across from a student who failed a midterm or a final, the MPRE, or the bar exam, and they question whether or not they belong in the law, I'm not just solving a test-taking problem. I am addressing spiritual and civic deprivation. I am telling them, you have standing here. Your voice matters. The law is yours, and it's been waiting for you. What this school does, what we do together, is give students the tools to compel responsiveness. Every student who advocates for their education, who passes the bar, who walks into a courtroom, who picks up the phone for a client who had no one until they talked to a lawyer trained by this clinical law school, that is Jean Camper Cahn's vision made real.
Jean believed that a legal education morally neutral on social issues was unacceptable, and that is in the DNA of this place. Now, Jean does not have a monopoly on frustration and anger or painful experiences. Many of us in this room are carrying inherited injustice, exclusion, and erasure of our own. The question Jean Camper Cahn answered for all of us is this: what will you do with that? We are, every one of us in this room, the continuation of what she started, and I am proud to stand in the house that Jean Camper Cahn built. Tonight, we will hear from voices that carry Jean's legacy forward. But first, I want to recognize her son, Jonathan Cahn, who knew her and loved her deeply. Thank you for being here. We'll hear from faculty member, Professor Yvette Papeau, who embodies her vision, student Amber Manny, who represents everything Jean built this school to serve. So please join me in welcoming Professor Yvette Papeau.
Right. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be standing in this room to address you all, to be among students and leaders, community members, staff, faculty, my former dean, my former professor when I was in law school. And it is a pleasure to meet you, Dean Reed. I want to begin with something I did not set out to learn, something that the students here at UDC taught me. And it's so nice to see all of you this evening. Students notice when you see them. And I don't mean see them in the cookie cutter way, but I mean really see them. And the whole person that they actually are shows up when they recognize that you see them. And I call this witnessing. And it is not witnessing in the way that we do as attorneys, but it is a testimony of the work that they have put into themselves to get here, the work they are putting into themselves to get out of here, and the work that they will put in to serve the community that they are built to serve. In a profession that is built on who gets to testify and who gets believed, it's not a small thing to be witnessed, to be seen, because the students who learn to show up as themselves become the lawyers who can actually see the people that they serve. The question Professor Morgan asked, what will you do with what you carry into this profession, deserves an answer. And I'm going to endeavor to answer that for you tonight. Jean walked into a profession that had not saved her a seat. She knew what it felt like to enter a room and understand, without anyone having to tell her, that your presence was provisional, that her value was something she would have to establish repeatedly in ways her colleagues never had to consider. That cost of entry was higher for her, and her margin of error was smaller, and the path to her credibility was longer. Many of us in this room know that feeling, and I'm sure that you feel it currently. We have lived it in classrooms, in courtrooms, in faculty meetings, committee meetings, even job interviews. And in the gap between the work we did and the credit we didn't receive. But here's what I've come to believe. The very thing that makes the experience so costly is also what makes Black women such precise and necessary architects of justice. When you've never been permitted to take a system for granted, you see it for everything that it is. You see the cracks, you see who it fails, and you see the why. You carry that knowledge into every room that you enter, and when you act on it, the system will get better. My own work as a scholar examines the ways Black women are shaped and constrained by existing legal structures and social structures. The way that the law has historically named some people as central and rendered them otherwise marginalized. I do this work because naming a harm is the first act of a legal remedy. You can ask my torts students. Great, they remember. And because the people the law school was created to serve deserve to have their stories told accurately, with rigor, by people who understand the stakes. That is what Jean started, and Jean did not build this tradition for abstraction. She built for rooms like this one, for the student sitting in the back who is not sure yet if they belong here, for the attorney who remembers what it cost to get in the door, for the scholar who is writing the thing the field is not ready for, and for the dean who now holds the power to reshape what the institution defaults to. Each of you is here tonight because someone, somewhere, decided that your presence in this profession mattered. So before I close, I want to speak directly to each of you. To the students, you belong in every room you step foot in. And I want you to own that as your reality, not your aspiration. And then come correct, okay? Because nothing comes easy here, as you have seen. Not the work, not the mission, not the communities on the other side of your degree. Understand the call and rise up to meet it. To my fellow colleagues, our charge is to deposit, not simply to teach doctrine, but to invest in the student sitting in the back who has not yet found their voice, in the one who challenges you in ways that make you sharper, in the one who is one semester away from leaving this place, because nobody has told them plainly that they are capable of doing this. Jean did not create this institution for legal education to be a transaction. She created it for people who understood the mission well enough to make it personal. Every student who leaves your classroom should be more certain of their capability than when they entered, and that is Jean's work continuing. To the attorneys and practitioners who are also my former students, every one of us has walked through a door that someone else opened. Figure out who opened yours and name them, and then decide who you're going to pull through behind you. Jean did not build this tradition so that Black women could finally have successful legal careers. She built it so the law itself could be more just. Hold that distinction. To the deans, you are the ones who get to decide whether this work depends on exceptional people absorbing exceptional costs, or whether the institution itself is built to sustain it. Institutional courage means hiring in the image of the mission, not just the market. It means ensuring that the students Jean imagined when she founded Antioch are not simply admitted, but resourced, mentored, and retained. It means building the conditions where a student does not have to find one professor who sees them, because the whole institution was designed to do so. And finally, to the community members and DC residents, this school was built for you. The work only reaches its purpose when the people Jean imagined are fully in the room. So thank you for being in the room. I step away from my classroom, away from the scholarship, away from the daily work of this profession to be in rooms like this, to be reminded, to witness, to be witnessed alongside people who understand why it still matters and what it costs and what it is that we are building. Jean Camper Cahn walked into a profession that had not saved her a seat and created a different door entirely. We are still walking through that door, We are still building what is on the other side of that door. May we be worthy of what she started. Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Amber Manny, and I just wanted to welcome you all here on behalf of the students at the University of the District of Columbia David A. Clarke School of Law. It's such an honor and privilege to have you all join us in celebrating Black women and our contribution to the field of law. For a lot of students who study at UDC, the path into law is deeply personal, and my own commitment to civil legal services was rooted in my late mother's commitment to education and empowering underserved communities. I've watched her work, and it's taught me that service is not an ideal, but it's my responsibility. And she always believed that education could open doors that have long been closed, and that's taken me into where I am today at the UDC School of Law. And for me, the law has always been more than a theory. It's a tool that protects dignity, it creates opportunity, and it strengthens our community. And this belief has been cemented in me by practicing at UDC Law. I've worked as a student attorney in the general practice clinic, and I've advocated for students and families navigating school disciplinary issues, many of whom face housing instability and other forms of hardship. I've ensured that other students receive fair treatment and due process in the general practice clinic and in our Student Bar Association. And I've tried to make sure that any voice that's ever underserved is never overlooked. And in the community development clinic, I worked with with housing cooperatives, nonprofit organizations, and small businesses that serve as a financial anchor, which is a really important part of what we do here at UDC. Helping these organizations and families and helping people strengthen their long-term sustainability has shown me that legal support helps communities in every way possible. And last summer, I had the privilege of working at the Children's Law Center as their summer law clerk. And when I graduate next fall, I have the privilege of working with kids again during my juvenile justice fellowship with the Houston Public Defender's Office. Thank you. I've seen families fight to secure just simple, safe living conditions in Washington, D.C., and I really have tried to give my best to everyone. Well, I'll say every student sitting in the room and to every member of the DC community. Everything works in tandem. Housing, health, education, family, stability, all of those are connected, and they've shown me how vital civil services are in protecting people's basic rights. I've been reminded again and again, especially by my professors, that access to justice doesn't depend on income, and it definitely does not depend on your circumstance. Everyone deserves an advocate to stand by them and to fight for fair outcomes. And I'm really proud that UDC Law has given all of us a chance to do that. This belief is central to the mission of this law school. UDC is committed to preparing lawyers who serve communities and advance justice, and tonight's event reflects that legacy. Black women, we have played an extraordinary role in advancing justice in this country, and we do it while navigating barriers that we were never meant to overcome. I've seen this leadership in my professors, in my dean, and I see how Black women have shaped courtrooms, classrooms, and communities across the nation. Black women lead law schools. They're mentors, they're students, they're excellent professors, and they guide institutions, and that's what makes us so powerful. My professors here at UDC Law have expanded what I know to be possible beyond my wildest imagination. And tonight we have the opportunity to learn from leaders who are shaping the future of legal education and the legal profession. Their stories, their journeys, and their leadership reminds us all that progress only happens when people commit themselves to justice and uplift others along the way. I can't thank you all enough for being here and for giving me the chance to represent the student body at the David A. Clarke School of Law. And I'm so excited to be a part of the next generation of advocates who represents UDC in everything that we do. So it's my pleasure to reintroduce our host, Professor Morgan. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move into the very exciting part of the evening where we're going to hear from these brilliant Black women law deans. And so I'm going to introduce them. And as I introduce them, they will come on up. First, I am going to start with Dean LaVonda N. Reed of the University of Baltimore School of Law. We have the same hair. All right. She's been serving as the Dean of the University of Baltimore School of Law since July of 2024. Prior to joining University of Baltimore School of Law, Dean Reed served as Dean of the Georgia State University College of Law, a seasoned higher education professional. She previously held the roles of Professor of Law and Associate Provost for Faculty Affairs at Syracuse University, where she oversaw the university's promotion and tenure review process, faculty research and administrative leaves, awards, and policy development and enforcement. During her tenure, she led many special projects and university initiatives, including those related to employee benefits and the recruitment and retention of a diverse faculty. She founded both the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence and the Center for Faculty Leadership and Professional Development. These efforts advanced Syracuse University's National Science Foundation Advance Grant, supporting women and underrepresented minority scholars in STEM discipline. Dean Reed is a nationally recognized scholar in the areas of property law and telecommunications, regulatory law, and policy, and her teaching also includes will and trust. Those are my wills and estates students. Yes, yes. Wave at Dean Reed, thank you. Don't embarrass me. All right. Previously, Dean Reed served on the faculty of the Louis D. Brandeis School of Law at the University of Louisville. She also clerked for the Honorable Donald W. Van Arten. Thank you, of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, and practiced communications and corporate law at the international law firm of Paul Hastings, LLP. She is impressive. Dean Reed earned her Juris Doctor from the University of Southern California Gould School of Law and her Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of Virginia. Please give Dean Reed a warm welcome. I will now be introducing Dean Renée Hutchins Laurent. Renée Hutchins Laurent is Dean and Professor of Law at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law. She previously served as Dean and Rao Chair of Public Interest Law at the University of the District of Columbia David A. Clarke School of Law. Dean Laurent, a leading expert on the Fourth Amendment and criminal appellate practice, has authored or co-authored 4 books and numerous law review articles. She is a member of the American Law Institute and currently serves on the board of directors for Access Lex and on West Academic Publishing's Law School Advisory Board. She is also the chair of Governor Westmore's Appellate Court's Judicial Nomination Commission. Dean Laurent graduated cum laude from Spelman College with a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics. That's very, very smart, in other words. She went on to earn her JD from Yale Law School, like Jean Camper Cahn. Please welcome Dean Laurent. And now we welcome Dean Angela Gilmore. Angela Gilmore is the interim dean of the University of the District of Columbia David A. Clarke School of Law, carrying forward the visionary legacy of Jean Camper Cahn, whose belief in law as a tool for the people remains at the heart of UDC Law's mission. Dean Gilmore's leadership embodies that founding principle, that the law must not only be practiced, but lived with compassion, purpose, and a commitment to equity. Appointed in July of 2024, Dean Gilmore brings more than 30 years of experience as a legal educator, practitioner, and advocate dedicated to transforming the justice system from within. Her life's work aligns with UDC Law's founding purpose to prepare Black and marginalized students to use their legal training to challenge inequality, uplift communities, and open doors for those too often left outside the law's protection. Before joining UDC Law, Dean Gilmore served as Senior Accreditation Counsel for the American Bar Association's section of legal education and admissions to the bar, guiding institutions across the country in advancing academic integrity and access. Earlier, she spent over a decade as Professor of Law and Associate Dean at North Carolina Central University School of Law and HBCU Law School, similarly rooted in service and social justice. Her leadership there expanded opportunities for underrepresented students and strengthened pathways into public interest law. Dean Gilmore earned her bachelor's degree from Hutchins University and her Juris Doctor from the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. Throughout her career, she has been known for her ability to inspire students to see themselves as agents of change, connecting the theory of law to the lived realities of people and communities. In the tradition of Jean Camper Cahn, Dean Gilmore's leadership at UDC Law is both principled and deeply personal. She believes that justice begins with proximity to the people and that legal education must be accessible, community-centered, and fearless in confronting systems of oppression. Under her guidance, UDC Law continues to honor its founding vision to be a place where the pursuit of justice is not abstract, but urgent, lived, and transformative. Please welcome Dean Gilmore. We are going to have the opportunity to hear from each of these deans. We're going to start with an opening reflection from each of them as it relates to what you have heard and how you are inspired to be here this evening.
Oh, are we starting with me? Thanks, Shakisha.
Dean Laurent, before we get started, I first want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for showing up tonight. I am just delighted to look out on this crowd and see so many friendly faces. I want to especially thank my students for showing up this evening. You all are the reason why I am happy to work harder than I have ever worked in my entire life. I also want to thank my colleagues on the faculty, the staff, the administration for showing up tonight as well. You all work so hard to help our students realize their dreams. And it's because of you that this is such a special place. I also want to thank my colleagues across the university for their support and for their guidance and for their generosity in sharing their wisdom with me as I navigate this journey. And then our alumni, thank you for showing up to support your colleagues, to support our future attorneys, and for members of the community who are here as well, thank you. We appreciate you, and it's our community partnerships that provide us with inspiration for the work that we do. So tonight, we are happy to have you listen in on our conversation. This is a conversation. It is not a panel presentation. When we thought about what the theme of this year's Black Women Leading in Law should be, we realize that there are 8 law schools in Maryland and the District of Columbia, and 4 of them are being led by Black women. Dean Dana Matthews is the dean at the George Washington School of Law. She really wanted to be here with us tonight, but she had a conflict that she just could not resolve. But think about that. 4 of the 8 law schools in Maryland and the District of Columbia are being led by Black women. And I can tell you that without a doubt, 3 of the Black women leading those law schools are 3 of the smartest, creative people, not women, not Black women, people that you could ever want to meet. I'm gonna leave it up to y'all to figure
It's
out
four.
what that
It's
fourth
four.
one
It's
is.
four.
But I'm gonna tell you, I almost want to be seated in the audience with you all so I can learn from the brilliance that's up here on the stage. And so, again, it's a conversation. Professor Morgan, Landrum Beard, they're going to keep us on time so that you all will have an opportunity to join in the conversation. So, as you give your opening remarks, let's also talk about how we ended up in this place, what it is that brought us to these positions, what have our career journeys looked like? And so, turn it over.
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. It is really good to be back here. Like, really, really good to be back here. Thank you, girl. I think I want to start by just calling out some folks, right? Because I think it's really easy when you are sitting in the presence of profound talent to forget how talented it is, right? And so UDC has the tremendous benefit, the absolute tremendous benefit of having so many amazing Black women in leadership, right? So you've got, we've got April and Melba and Angela here, right, in the leadership roles. We've got Erica and Avis. On the faculty, we've got Salima and Yvette and Shakisha. Who am I missing? Aisha, where did she go? She was somewhere. Huh? Well, used to be, girl, used to be. The staff is remarkably talented. Loretta rides for this school like nobody I know, literally. And so I think, we're on the stage, but this conversation could be had by so many other people in this room. There is so much talent at this school and so much commitment and so much hard work and just the way that the folks at UDC Law and at UDC generally ride for the students at this school is unparalleled. Never take that for granted. Never, ever, ever take that for granted. Because you don't see it everywhere. You really do not see it everywhere. How did I end up here? Very much by accident. Didn't really want to be a dean, ever. Didn't actually really want to be a lawyer. I was a math major. I can tell a really good story about my CV looking backwards that makes perfect sense, My dad's family, very involved in the civil rights movement in the South. So it makes perfect sense telling the story backward. But I did not always believe in my ability to do a thing. And I needed people around me to tell me that I could. And because I had a tremendous support section and tremendous family and tremendous friends and tremendous cheerleaders and colleagues, I ended up in great places. I got to call out my biggest and most wonderful cheerleader, my husband, Tony, sitting in the back. Mwah, love you, boo. But that's how I ended up here, because I had a remarkable village who was always telling me I could do a thing. So.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. I am so grateful to be here, to be in this space, but also to be doing the work that I am doing in the place that I'm doing in the moment in time. Tell you a little story. Back in 1993, I studied for the LSAT across the street when Kaplan had a little office upstairs somewhere, it's a little dinky office. And to think that, fast forward all these years, that I have gone and done all kinds of different things with my career, come back to this city, this region, and in this position, it's really kind of amazing to just think that this has been my life. And so I just have to say that I'm just grateful. And I live every moment. I come to the school every day with that sense of gratitude and hoping to create opportunities for other people, people who, like Dean Laurent just said, may not believe they can do a thing, but if I can do the thing, I know they can do the thing, right? And I just want to thank you, Dean Gilmore, for having me here. Thank you to the entire UDC community for having me here. I want to thank my colleague Liz Field, who lives right up the street but works in Baltimore, who just runs up and down the road with me and is just a wonderful, wonderful colleague. And she has worked for a couple of the African-American deans that we have referenced here, Dana Matthew and also Blake Morant, who is a mentor to all of us. He had been the dean at Wake Forest Law School and also at GW Law School. And, and Roger, that's right, and Roger, you worked for Roger. And so every day, I'm just grateful for the opportunity and just trying to make the ancestors and people who came before me proud and just carry their legacy.
So how many of the lawyers and law students in the room always knew that they wanted to be lawyers? From the time they were... That is so not my story. So not my story. Are there any lawyers or law students here who started out as pre-med? And then, yep, that was me too. That was me too. So I'm first generation college, first ever professional or graduate school. When I was growing up, it was not an option for me not to go to college. That's what my family just expected of me. And so that's what I did. And when I was growing up, there were maybe 3 or 4 things that they told smart Black girls that they could do. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse. So I decided I was going to be a doctor. Went to college. I was pre-med for a whole year. Woo! That brought my cumulative GPA down. And so I was undecided for the next couple of years of college because I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew that I could get a master's. That was 2 years. And you had to write a thesis. Or I could go to law school. That was 3 years. And you didn't have to write a thesis. I went to law school. And I tell this because there may be those of you who are in the room who are wondering, why am I here? Why did I decide to go to law school? It's great education. It prepares you for a lot of different careers. I followed a more traditional route, did a little bit of practice, went into legal education. So I just want you to know that sort of, how did you describe it? Did you say it was unplanned, unexpected? Same is true for me, but I know that now I am exactly where I am supposed to be, doing the work that I'm supposed to do. So sometimes you just got to trust the process. Just have to trust the process. So how did you end up on the faculty of a law school? What got you from being a math major to ending up on the faculty? How did you obtain your first faculty position?
I just love school. And so my mother was a teacher. And when I was growing up, I would line up all my dolls. And my mom I would make up worksheets. And then I'd have my mom take them to school. And run them off on the ditto machine back in the day when they had ditto machine. And then she would bring them home and I would do a separate worksheet for each of the dolls. And I had one doll, who was always going to get the top grade. And then, and there was a bell curve, right? so I just love the whole idea of school. And so I think when I was thinking about what I would be, I thought for a moment that I would become a teacher. And then I realized that I could be a lawyer and a teacher at the same time. And that's kind of how I got into legal education. I enjoyed the practice of law enough, but it wasn't really my passion. Interestingly enough, I don't like a lot of conflict, right, exactly. So, but I like teaching. So, at heart, I'm an educator. And, I never thought I wanted to be a dean. So when I started, in my legal education career, I had a female dean. And then when I went to Syracuse, I also had a female dean. And I was looking at them like, why would anybody want to do that job? It looks really hard. The faculty were not happy. And, they had all these things they had to manage, right? And then I just did all this service, really, when I got to Syracuse University. I was on this committee and that committee and da-da-da-da-da. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, she's the go-to person. And then my mentor there, Chancellor Siverud, who had been Kent Siverud? Yeah. So he kind of took me under his wing and was like, what do you want to do? And so he's giving me all these different opportunities. I think you should be a dean. And so, I kind of became a dean by accident also, but I really do enjoy the job. I really do. Every day. Most days. Right. On any given day, it could be, you can have highs and lows, like your students got a great job, or they got a great fellowship, a faculty member's got a great publication, or the elevator's broken and the toilets are clogged. You just never know.
With us here at UDC.
You just never know.
Yeah, there's a thing with elevators here. So I ended up in academia because it's always really mattered to me that I care about what I'm doing. It's always really, really mattered that I felt like I was doing something that made a difference. And I was at a firm when I made the jump into academia, and we bingo, right? And we were fighting about money, and it just didn't matter that much to me. It mattered a lot to the clients, but it didn't matter that much to me. And so I wanted to figure out something else to do with my time and talent. I was pregnant with my first son and was going out on maternity leave, and it provided sort of a natural segue into figuring something else out. And NYU was hiring into their lawyering program, and it was a 2-year program. And I thought, well, that's a good place to park, right? Like, it's not a lifetime. I don't have to make a whole decision. I can go and I can figure out what to do next. I actually wasn't planning on staying in teaching. I didn't know. And went to NYU and started teaching and fell in love. I was like, this is my jam. Really loved, I actually liked practicing law. Like, I actually really, really liked practicing. I just didn't like practicing at a firm, fighting about money, but I like practicing law. And so I loved teaching other people to love the practice of law. Like, I never understood when I went to law school, all of the faculty hated practicing law. Like, they hated it. They went into academia because they were like, oh God, like where else can we be other than in a courtroom? And it never made sense to me that you could teach people to love a thing that you couldn't stand. Like, I just never understood that. I was like, that is backwards. And so when I started teaching, I was like, okay, this is it, right? Like, I can teach these kids what's amazing about representing clients and what's amazing about stepping in to champion for a person when they are at their worst moment, when they really need help. So the position at Maryland opened up. I had a friend, a guy I had known from practice in New York, Mike Pinard. He was on the faculty at Maryland. He said, hey, I don't know if this academia thing is serious, but if it is, we're hiring. And I applied, and that's where I landed.
when I was in law school, I was a tutor for our legal writing program, and I also tutored geometry through the YMCA. And that's when I realized that I really, really loved teaching. There was something about taking a student from a place of confusion to a place of clarity. And I found that really exciting. And so when I was in law school, I realized, well, I have this interest in the law. I have this interest in teaching. This is what I want to do. But I knew that I also wanted to get some practical experience first. And so I practiced law for a bit, and I didn't mind it. I can't say that I loved it. Didn't hate it, though. I mean, it was fine. What I did after law school was I did a fellowship as well at the University of Iowa. It was a 2-year fellowship for folks who were interested in teaching law, but may not have, and I'll just be frank with you, may not have the credentials or the experience to actually enter the academy. And so for those of you who are interested, just know that there are fellowships out there that you can apply for. I didn't go to one of the traditional feeder law schools. So I knew that I had a little bit of work to do in order to be attractive to law schools. And so I figured out what that work was, and then I did the work. My first teaching position after the fellowship at the University of Iowa was at Nova Southeastern University, which is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I spent about 20 years there. And I taught, but I also had a number of administrative positions. I loved being the chair of committees. And that's when I realized that I really enjoy being in the classroom, but I also like being in charge of things. And I like the administrative work as well. And so while there, that's sort of where I was able to explore many of my interests. From there, I did a year at Elon University, and I went to North Carolina Central, and that's where I developed my love of HBCU law schools. I was so happy to be there. I am so happy to be at the University of the District of Columbia. But after about 30 years in law school, I felt, well, have I done pretty much all that I was called to do? And that's why I went to the ABA, because I still wanted to remain in legal education, but I was there from the accreditor's perspective. But I feel like all of my previous positions led me to this position. And so I'm thankful for every job that I've ever had. I'm thankful. I didn't go to law school, but I'm thankful for the experiences that I had in law school as well. We're going to talk about a number of things. So let's talk now. We talked about our career journeys. Let's talk about leadership, and let's talk about representation. So we're all sort of swimming in the same water. What's it like to lead a law school during this time?
Ooh, child. Where's the bar? So it's a lot. It is a lot. So the job probably changed 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? Like it used to be that when you were the dean of the law school, you were just like the most senior faculty member with the biggest budget, right? And that was it. Now, you're a comptroller, you're a therapist, you're an HR specialist, you're an academic advisor, you're an academic organizer, you're maintenance supervisor, and like the list just goes on and on and on. Like they just kept adding to the job. And now we are doing those jobs with an administration that is hell-bent on breaking higher education. And that just makes the job harder. But it also makes it more important, right? Because it's not an accident that we're seeing a cap on federal loans, right? It's not an accident that we're seeing trade schools being touted as sort of the new thing. And there's nothing wrong with being in a trade. I want to be really, really clear, but that's not the only path, right? It's not an accident that we are seeing the attacks on DEI and on academic freedom and on institutional independence. There is a very clear narrative being created about who higher education is for in this country and who the educated of us should be, right? And it's all wrong. But it makes the jobs of leadership harder because all of the day-to-day stresses that come with sort of running a multi-million-dollar operation that is trying to educate hundreds of people and employs hundreds more becomes harder when you've also got existential threats coming at you every single day, and you are constantly trying to navigate and dance between raindrops to not make yourself a target and but not lose your mission and not buckle and not sort of prematurely acquiesce to demands that are absolutely unreasonable and unconstitutional, and that all of us should be outraged about. But it's a dance, right? It's a dance. So it's exhausting. That's what being in leadership right now is like.
Yeah, it is exhausting, and all of the things that Renee was saying, so true from my perspective as well. The existential threat, the all-out assault on just trying to take us down, right? The anti-intellectualism that we are seeing in society, the whole notion that not everybody should be a participant in this thing called America. I grew up in a military family, and my dad was one of the first Black officers in the Marine Corps, and he was a infantry. Yeah, some Marines up in there, right? So he was in a long line of men who had served this country in the military, and he grew up outside of Parris Island in South Carolina, which is the Marine recruiting depot. And so patriotism is just like through our family. So many uncles and everybody, has given a lot to this country, have fought for the freedoms. And to think that in this moment in time, there are people who really think that we don't belong here and we're not Americans and all this kind of stuff. And I just reject it, right? I just reject it flat out. Not only, the people who served in the military, but, the whole lineage of the family has contributed so much and built this country, right? It's ours. And so, you're fighting against that. But there's power also in that, I know these things to be true. And while people are, stressed out and worried about where this thing is going, I believe that because of what we have experienced and the fortitude that it has taken for us to continue to survive against all these odds, that we will be okay. We're continuing to build ourselves, continuing to improve ourselves, and continuing to stay true to what we have known has always been a fight. And so as I'm leading the school, I'm just inspired by that, right? While trying to fix the elevator and trying to, but also, seeing students who are kind of like, what is all this for now? Right? What about the rule of law? You're teaching me about this, and it seems like people don't even care, that it doesn't even matter, right? But reminding people that, hopefully these things are cyclical. This is not going to last forever. What you should be doing, what you're doing right now, is to continue to build, continue to get ready for what comes on the other side of this. And I realize that, part of my job is just to be a cheerleader too, and to just tell people to keep going, right? Yeah.
Can I just add one thing to that? Like, one thing that I would say also, so it is exhausting, but it is also, there is strength in numbers. There is strength in coalition. And we can't ever forget that, right? Like we cannot ever forget, we can never be too exhausted to keep fighting, because our forefathers and mothers weren't, right? Jean wasn't, right? And so like having LaVonda as my sister Dean up in Baltimore, we call each other all the time. I'm like, ooh, girl. Did you see that? Ooh, girl, today was the day. But you've got to lean on that, right? Like there is so much tremendous, like sisters here at UDC. There is so much power in your collective wisdom. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever fight each other. When we work together, we are unstoppable, right? Unstoppable.
So first, I'm gonna need y'all to add me to that text thread. But how do you keep your students inspired and invigorated given these times in which we live? I know for me, I just keep looking at our mission. I just keep looking at our mission and remembering sort of why I am doing what I'm doing. I'm here to help our students who are underrepresented at the bar achieve their dreams. And I'm here to ensure that the residents of the District of Columbia who are underserved are provided with critical legal services through our law school clinics. But how do we keep our students inspired and engaged and committed? Because law school is hard. Law school is expensive. There are so many folks out there who are telling us that this is not where we belong. And I apologize. I just want to stop and say something. You hear so many folks talking about imposter syndrome. I don't want anybody in this room, anyone in this room, think that they do not belong. Imposter syndrome is something that was created in an attempt to keep us in our places. Y'all, exactly, it is not real. As you said, you belong in every single room that you are in. And don't let anybody tell you that you don't. And I know sometimes it's difficult, it's hard, you want to give up. How do we keep our students engaged?
So the beautiful thing about being young is you don't know anything. Like you don't actually know that life is hard yet when you're young, right? Like you don't actually know how difficult it gets. And so you're still inspired, which is wonderful. Young people are more fired up than we are, to be clear, right? Like law school applications across the country are up 30%. People are so outraged by what they are seeing, and they are so outraged by what they are and have been experiencing for decades, for lifetimes, that they just need us to wind them up and give them the tools and point them in the right direction. Like they're gonna be okay, right? And so as long as we are doing our job of molding, shaping, helping them manage the stress, teaching them grit, teaching them that you cannot fall apart the minute life gets hard. You got to take care of yourself, right? Like mental health is real, addiction, hardship, all that stuff is real, right? But it can't stop you. As long as we're doing that for them, they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about this generation. I'm really not. They are going to be okay. We have some molding and shaping we need to do, but they have a fire in their bellies about injustice, and the applications for law schools are showing us that. People are outraged at what they are seeing.
Yeah, so I see the role as like counselor, advisor, to the point that Renée was just making. They are excited about the work they're doing. They're passionate about the work they're doing. As a dean, one of my roles is to make sure that the programmatic offerings that we have at the school are those that will help them build the skills, of the technical skills, the analytical skills, the networking and professional skills that were going to advance their career, and to share my experiences and the ups and the downs, to lift them up when I see them in the elevators that are often broken, right? So what we're doing at our school, we have a very tall building. It's like 13 stories high, right? And so there's a lot of up and downs in the elevators. And I get a lot of time, with students, like when we're in the elevator. So they know I'm going to ask them, what are you studying today? How's it going? Did you get the job? Did it's those moments where I think, I can't remember which young lady said, to feel seen, for people to see you, right? Right. And so, and it's not just the women, of course, you might sometimes see a male student who's looking a little down. They might be dragging or whatever. The whole idea of kind of like being the principal of the school is to, right, kind of check in on people and get them out of their head for a minute. Even if it's asking them, what did you do over the weekend? What are you going to do? And how's it going? Are you okay? Because in a moment like this, where there's so much coming at people, at least I feel like one of the things that I can do to add value to somebody's day-to-day experience is to be kind, to try to encourage them to keep doing good work and all like that.
And let's talk a little bit more about the role of the dean. I will tell you, one of my challenges is figuring out, when you talk about all of the different responsibilities of the dean, one of my challenges is figuring out how to get out of my office. You all have more experience than I do in this role. Share some wisdom with your sister.
It's tough. It is tough, and it's a day-to-day struggle to be intentional about it. I think the longer I have served as a dean, because this is my 5th year as a dean now. I did 3 years at Georgia State and now 2nd year here at Baltimore. Trying to get ahead of the calendar. And Liz has been so helpful in all of this. I'm trying to get ahead of the calendar a week or two ahead, looking at what's going on and trying to remove some things so that you have time to just hear yourself think. Because the problems are always there. You could be solving problems all day, but never having a moment to do any reflective thinking. And so trying to get a hold of that calendar and using people to kind of look through it and see, this could wait, or maybe somebody else can handle this. So delegating, I think I do a lot better job now as a dean of delegating responsibilities to the associate deans or directors of programs or committee chairs than I did in the beginning, because I kind of felt like, oh, well, they won't know that I know what I'm doing unless I'm doing it. But, part of knowing what you're doing is also to let other people do it and like that. And sometimes things go wrong. And, you have to own it if, you delegate something to someone and it doesn't kind of work out the way that you had hoped, but you own it and you just try to get the team back on the right track. But one benefit that we have at Baltimore is that our building is like almost all glass. And so it's very different from, yes, it's just like this table. So I have an open door policy. I also jokingly say I have an open walls policy too. And so one thing is the design of the building helps. When I was at Syracuse and when I was at Georgia State, it was a solid wood door. And when I was behind it and for many, many hours, and people wouldn't even know I was in there. And so having the glass also lets me see what's happening out there, lets people see me. And I also kind of feel a part of it even if I'm in the office.
Right.
Yeah. More glass. No. You have to get used to it. I mean, I totally freaked out when I saw that building. I was like, oh my goodness. But I've gotten used to it. A lot of glass.
So I would say, because I saw we got the 5-minute time and he's about to walk over here with the 3-minute time. So as the dean, you have to know all the things. You don't have to do all the things. And knowing people and helping people know you actually makes your job easier, right? Like if people know you and they feel like they can trust you, they'll trust your decisions. If they know that you care about the institution and you really just want what's best for the institution and you're being as transparent as you possibly can be with your decision making and kind of what sits under it, getting out of your office is a part of the job. Like your job is going to be so much harder if the people in the building are like, I don't know, I haven't seen her in a month. Like I don't know what she's thinking about. I don't know what's on her mind. I don't know. And I don't like the decision she just made. So, right? You don't want that. You really don't want that. And so getting out of your office and making sure you're constantly staying in touch with the faculty, the staff, the students, makes things much easier. If you can't get out of your office, bring them to you. I've got standing meetings with all the heads of the student orgs, all of my A deans, and various members of the faculty on a rotating basis. Because it gets busy. And your days, you look at your days and it's like, I don't have a 10-minute break from 9 to when? Like, yeah. So it can get very busy.
Do either of you have town hall meetings or community meetings? How often and what format do they take? I really am trying to.
So faculty meetings monthly, staff meetings monthly. We used to not have staff meetings at Maryland. I started doing staff meetings because I realized what was happening was the information was going to faculty from the dean, and then it was filtering to staff, which created unnecessary hierarchies, right? Like law schools are already super hierarchical. And so the dissemination of information can be one lever of power that people use. Why not just eliminate it, right? And so I do a staff meeting monthly after the faculty meeting. I meet with the head of the SBA and the head of all the student orgs on a monthly basis. And then if we have like big, things, like big issues, like I know that a thing is percolating,
Right.
then I will either do a town hall with all the students or we'll do meetings with the student organizations. Depending on how volatile it is,
Right.
we'll do meetings with the student orgs one-on-one.
Yeah, and we have a faculty meeting monthly, and I meet with the staff about every 6 weeks. And the student leaders, I will meet with them, not really on a standing basis in the same way, but this is probably something I should probably adopt. Really kind of on an ad hoc basis, but we have a really good relationship with the Student Bar Association leadership, and so they always know that they can come to me if they need anything. And the associate dean for students is very active with them as well. But time's out. We got the red folder.
And so as we close and invite the audience into this conversation, tell me one thing you've learned from your students.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Don't let things linger too long because people will create a narrative. Even if the narrative isn't true, people will create a narrative around a thing, a decision, whatever. And that narrative will, it will develop a life of its own that is impossible to stop. And so getting in front of things, staying in front of things and being as transparent as you possibly can be. And remembering that like it's old to you, but it's new to them. Yeah. Like the kids are in and out of the building every 3 years. And I know it feels like you just said it, but you didn't just say it. Like they don't know it. And so having the patience to, okay, this is a new group of students, right? Like they don't know the thing. They're not just trying to piss me off, right? Like they really don't know. Has been a good lesson.
I've learned that role models matter, representation matters, and it can be the difference between someone thinking that something is not for them and someone thriving in the thing that they're doing.
And I will just add, and this is something that I heard, but I'm really starting to learn it now, and that's nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So, yeah. So, well, Professor Morgan?
I've learned so much. I brought my handy dandy notebook that was given to me by an alum so I could make sure that I'm asking about it. Before we get started with the Q&A, I just want to remind folks that this is a great opportunity to be thinking about how you can contribute to this fight with your dollars. I'm asking you for money. I'm asking you to donate to these wonderful students. Wave your hands at the people. Let them know what they are pouring into. Yeah, so there are QR codes around the place or on each and every table. So please just prepare yourself. Take a look at the bank account balance while we go through this Q&A. All right, you may ask a question. I'm going to kick it off with a question, but you all may ask a question as well. Director Beard is here to help to indicate which of you will be asking that question. But I'm just going to start here. And we've been talking a little bit about students. So for the students that are sitting here tonight, especially young Black women who are considering careers in law, what do you understand about the significance of your role as they watch you?
This is really trite because people say it all the time, but you really can't be it if you can't see it. And so one of the things that I try to remember to do all the time is show up as much of my authentic self as I can in the role, to create the space for other people to show up as much authentically as they can. Because if I just show up and try to fit into some preformed box of what a dean is supposed to be or look like, there's really no reason for me to be there.
I am learning the importance of being fully present. I had to learn that students, y'all know me. Say the thing. I'm in my office. I'm working hard. Somebody knocks on my door. I'm like, oh my goodness. Who is this at my door? Who is this that's interrupting my work? That is the work. Y'all are the reason I have a job. Y'all are the reason that I'm here. And so you all deserve my undivided attention. You're not an interruption. You're not a distraction. You're my entire reason for being here. And so sometimes I need to show up by dealing with the administration and advocating for the law school. But other times, I need to show up in ways that show you that I am fully invested in your success and that you are the reason that I do what I do.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's been answered enough. I don't need to answer. Oh, okay.
Hello again. So my question, you guys talked about working with like the Student Bar Association and like leaders at school. And I know that with Dean Gilmore and I, like we've been able to foster a really good like professional relationship, even with Craig, who's our SBA president. Like he and I work really hard with Kevin, our vice president, and Dean Gilmore. I was curious from the dean's perspective, like student advocacy and how you balance kind of your mission as the dean when it doesn't maybe align with what the students are wanting. Like what's the fine line that you walk between I respect you as an organization and there's things that are happening in the law school behind, you know, closed doors, or there's more politics than you see, or there's things that I have to do to maintain my position. Like what is kind of the dean perspective on, you know, meeting with student leaders and how do you handle that? I don't want to call it a conflict. I don't think we've ever had a conflict, but how you handle when things are maybe contentious between yourself and the student body.
Yeah, and the interests don't always align, oftentimes because people don't have all the same information, and different motivations too, right? And so my philosophy is to hear, I listen a lot. And then I try to explain. Hopefully, in doing so, everyone can kind of see the larger picture and understand the things that are in tension with one another. I did a lot of this when I was associate provost at Syracuse. The university, you get the pressure from the university administration, you've got pressures from the board of trustees, you've got the alumni, you've got the faculty, you've got the students, and everybody's coming at things from a different perspective. And just listening and trying to explain and helping people see other people's perspective about it. I mean, some things are higher stakes, clearly, than other things, right? And some things, with students explaining that processes, like if there was a curricular change that students want, is not something that the dean can just make a change. It has to go through the faculty. The faculty really are the owners of the curriculum, right? I can help to guide the faculty to a certain outcome, but I can't just wave a wand and change it, right? It's outside my authority. And so sometimes you do have to agree to disagree, but so long as we're all pushing towards the mission and the goal of educating our students and students getting your education, that's, just try to keep that as the North Star.
I have these two competing values. One is efficiency, and then the other is collaboration. So I have not had a single idea that has not been made better by input and feedback from other people. It takes time. And I like to check things off my to-do list, and it's much easier to do that if I'm sort of operating on my own and making the decisions myself. But I have come to realize that efficiency has to give way sometimes to collaboration, because I want to make sure, my decisions are pretty good, but I need to make sure that it's the best decision that can be made, and that requires input and feedback from other folks.
Yeah, following up on that, I'm very collaborative, as Liz will know. I very rarely make a decision without talking to a whole lot of different people. A lot of people. And so that it does slow things down, right? But at least at the end of the day, everybody can feel as if they had a voice in it. It was taken into account, and usually the resolution of an issue involves tidbits of everybody's idea, right? Yeah. Everybody can feel better.
Right. So I would say one of the things that I tell students all the time is you may not agree with every decision that I make, but you should understand why I'm making them. That requires lots of conversation, right? I'm never mad at students for advocating. That's your job, right? Like, you should be advocating. You should be advocating for the things that you want. But hopefully through a dialogue, right, with me or other leadership at the school, you should also understand that the position that you're taking probably has a pretty narrow perspective, right? And the decisions that I am making have to account not just for that perspective, but for the perspective of the 12 people standing behind you in line, wanting something very, very different. And so it really is just about conversation and dialogue and respect.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamila Hubbard. My question, good to see everybody, and thank you so much for being here. My question is, as deans, how are you approaching the impending AI boom and preparing students to go into practice in a world that is soon to be consumed by AI, and how does social justice intersect with that?
So great question. We just had a fabulous board meeting about exactly this issue at Maryland. I heard a great quote. Your job is not going to be taken by AI. Your job is going to be taken by somebody who knows how to use AI. And so a part of our job in training new young lawyers is to help them understand how to use the tool ethically and effectively, right? Like putting blinders on and saying, it's not coming, like that's not going to work. It's sort of like when Westlaw was, y'all won't remember this, but I just dated myself. So when Westlaw was coming and you had professors, you got to find the books and we're not going to teach you anything about Westlaw. And it's like, well, that's just not going to work, right? Because that's not the direction the practice is moving. So we at Maryland, we are actually infusing into our 1L legal writing program components of AI, not just with regard to research, but also with regard to drafting and the creation of documents and the like. It is important that students understand. So you got to be transparent, right? Like you got to tell them, here are the skills that you are not going to gain if you use Copilot to do the first draft, right? But here are the efficiencies that you will accomplish if you do the first draft. And then you get AI to help you think about what you're missing and to polish that draft, right? But they have to know how to do that, and we have to teach them that. So we are infusing it across our curriculum. We're also bringing in some folks from practice. So we had some of our board members are big firm folks, and they're like, Harvey is the thing, right? You should teach Harvey. And we're like, well, we're not going to teach Harvey, right? Because these kids actually know how to use Harvey. They grew up with computers in their pockets. But we will teach them how to ethically use a tool like Harvey. And we will teach them how to think about the other ways in which they could be using AI. So we're sort of spreading it across the entire curriculum of Maryland.
Yeah, we're doing very much the same. And I'll just only add, we took a group of students out to the Maryland Court of Appeals last fall when the attorney who had used AI to generate this brief was presenting the case and got completely dressed down by the court. The students were like eyes wide open, jaws on the ground. If you ever go back and watch the video and you see the people sitting in the background with their mouth wide open, those are my students. But in real time, for them to see the consequences of taking shortcuts, and not only taking shortcuts, but also blaming somebody else for what went wrong when you took the shortcut, so that they can actually see the possible ramifications for ethical lapses, in addition to all of the things that Dean Laurent was saying about infusing it in the curriculum, and also bringing in alumni to talk about it, and training faculty on how to use it as well for their own work, but also for the purposes of teaching students. Yeah.
And I would just add that we are in the process of doing the same thing. This year was incorporated into our legal research class for our 1L students. We are also encouraging faculty, and faculty have responded positively about incorporating that into their classes regardless of what they teach. We're also talking about, because things change so quickly, that students can get it in their first year, and they probably need to get it in their final year as well. And that these need to be required courses or required components of courses, because all of our students, regardless of the type of law that they are going to practice, need to know how to use this AI.
Our university has some collaboration opportunities with across the colleges, and the law school faculty have been really involved in working with faculty from other schools and colleges too, on like writing AI across the curriculum, across discipline too.
And then the last thing, so Jamila, you also asked about social justice and AI, right? And so there are ways in which AI can actually close the justice gap and can make access to representation more available for underrepresented people. But what we know from COVID is that tech also can exacerbate divides, right? And so we have to be really, really, really thoughtful as we are teaching students about understanding that, understanding what is embedded in the algorithms, understanding the ways in which the learning models are learning off of flawed data, and what they need to do to correct it, right? Like the kids that we're educating are going out to be leaders. And so if they don't know this stuff, they are going to be adopting AI like it's a neutral baseline, and it's not. And so they've got to understand that, right? And that's a part of our job. So, but there are ways in which AI can raise the level of representation for folks, which could be a good thing. But jury's still out.
This is our final question.
Ray Michael Bridgewater, taking us into another direction. I'm out in the community. And one of the biggest things now is know your rights. Know your rights. And one of the biggest problems with our government is that they don't know the population. They don't know the population and they don't understand the population. How often do you get out? Because I help do health fairs. How often do you get out to meet the population?
Yeah. So we have 12 clinics in our law school, and the students are representing members of the community who otherwise would not be able to afford legal representation, from immigration and tax and family law and all kinds of different topical areas. So our students are out there representing the clients. They're also out there doing kind of know your rights things, like you were saying. We have a veterans clinic. Our veteran students partnered with Howard County, the county executive, this year to do some clinics, kind of know your rights for veterans too, and veterans and military connected families. So our mission at the University of Baltimore is very much tied to social justice and access. Our president, who's the former mayor of the city of Baltimore, likes to say that we're the University of Baltimore for Baltimore. And so, you know, our students are really committed to getting out and doing good in the world. We have, you know, a handful of students who go to big law every year, but for the most part, they're going to social justice organizations, public service, and so that you know, there's a kind of like a just an ingrained connection with the community around the immigration issue. Our faculty have held Know Your Rights for our student body and gave them lots of materials that they can share with their communities, their families, and things like that. And we continue to do a lot of work around the issue of the potential of ICE coming to Baltimore. So it's kind of in a lot of different thematic areas, and our students are really committed to doing that work, and we are vessels to provide the platform for them to do it.
And I would say that the same is true for UDC Law School. We have one of, if not the highest clinical requirement of law schools in the country. And so our students are out there, are representing folks. They're also putting on workshops for the university, for the community. We also have faculty members who hold Know Your Rights workshops and seminars. And so just like the University of Baltimore, that's integral to who we are. That's a part of our DNA, and that's what we do.
So like both UDC and Baltimore, Maryland has a 50-plus-year-old clinical law program that has embedded student attorneys in the community for 5 decades. But it's also, we do the work through our centers as well. So for example, our Gibson Bank Center for Race and the Law, we hire up a staff, and one of the decisions we made very early on with regard to staffing of the Gibson Bank Center was that we were going to have a community fellow, not just sort of academic fellows. So we have a fellow who is born and raised in West Baltimore and helps keep the sort of more theoretical work of that center anchored in the needs of the community that is our neighbor. And we do that same sort of work across all of our centers. So our Chacon Center for Immigrant Justice does, Know Your Rights work in the community. Our Levitas Center does work in the public schools. Our CDRUM, our Alternative Dispute Resolution Center, has been doing detention and expulsion prevention work in Baltimore City Public Schools for decades. So we are very heavily embedded in Baltimore City and in Maryland more broadly because most of our grads stay in the state. And so it's really, really important to us that we are not just, right, like we are not just in Maryland and not just in Baltimore, but also of Baltimore and of Maryland. Very important.
Our faculty testify at all levels of government, city council, state, federal level, and represent clients. Even some faculty who are not clinical faculty are also continuing to engage in representation of the community on these issues.
Well, with that, you all, I think we have to give a very warm thank you to our amazing Black women law deans, Dean Gilmore, Dean Reed, Dean Laurent. It's really wonderful to just kind of witness those conversations. We have a gift for Dean Laurent and Dean Reed for joining us at the illustrious. Okay, it's not a sweatshirt, but there is it's wearable on your arm. It's a bag. Okay. It's a bag. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to our students. Yes, Dean Gilmore. Well, Dean Gilmore, so we gave the gifts on behalf of, didn't you already say that the students were the gift? I thought. If you guys don't see me on campus tomorrow, it wasn't me. It was Director Beard. All right. Thank you to our students, to our alumni, to see you all, our faculty, our staff, and community and friends for joining us and being a part of this important conversation. I want to remind you all that there are QR codes on the table. I'm asking for your money. Because wave again, students, let them see your bright, shiny smiles. This is what you are supporting, the work of Jean Camper Cahn. So we also invite you to continue this dialogue tomorrow at the UDC Law Review Symposium, right? The theme is Law in Living Color, Defending Black and Brown Lives in the Age of Erasure. It is from 11:30 to 5:30 tomorrow, 5th floor, Moot Courtroom. And so thank you all for taking your time to join us tonight. You may join us for desserts and continued fellowship. Keep going out and keep doing the work. Thank you.
Before you want to be?
Yes, down there.
Right up here. The thing is this, please put these 3 chairs on that line, then you can step in front of it. You just come around in front of it.
Yeah. I got to be in the middle again, don't I?
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Because I'm so tall.
No, the dean. Yes, you're the dean, man.
Who's this here?
That's Angela.
Yeah, just put it under the chair if you don't mind. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, but I found another one that's like a Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. This looking big. You looking big? Oh, yeah.
Everything. Yes, please. Thanks, Dave.
It's looking big now.
Oh, and we want to get one with, please. Here first. Awesome. Go for it. Yeah. Can we have, all right, the four of you right here. Okay, baby step this way with me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, now bring it in tight. Here we go. Excuse me if I can. And then you'll go up. Yeah. All right, here we go. Here. Here, boom. The other one. Take Paul Roach. And then you're going to go up on that side. They need you on the stage. On that side. That side.
So y'all was gonna call me? Oh, that was, oh, I'm sorry. Come on, happy back. Come on, girl. Come on, we got a balance.
Yeah, you can be on that side. Okay. Now everyone, baby step this way. That way.
That way?
Yep. Right there. There you are.
Okay.
Here we go. This is your camera right here.
Watch like a skillet.
All right, this is the camera. 3, 2.
All right, I'm gonna go back and forth.
And I think that's your water.
I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. You got an extra one. Extra one. But oh, invited to me like are you?
That's my wife.
I think Renee. And I'm so are you okay?
What's your name? Good to meet you. I'm talking to Good to meet you. You know, I finally learned that I was alive the last 3 years, so you know, my mom passed away. So I remember when the first husband, Jake, so I used to reach out for a ring and be like, I got the ring. I don't have that kind of relationship. Make sure you know that I'm sending you some prayers. And then my mom died. That was starting to really talk on the phone with the men. Well, ain't nothing to tell we started dating. That's a good thing.
That makes me so happy.
I guess, yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much, man. Congratulations.
So,
My second marriage too. So my first one.
my I heard one like and his wife
Yep.
was on the board was a excuse me, I just wanted to say it was nice to meet
Great meeting you too. Okay, take good care.
wife. They got married when they were like 22.